All right. We've been in this series, Everything Revealed, a historical and literary reading of the book of Revelation. For those that are listening online, keeping score at home, this is teaching number 17. All right. And shout out to all the emails this week that were all positive. Praise God. All right. I'm so grateful more and more people are finding us, and I'm just thankful. A gentleman reached out from Texas, and I love it. He said, I binged listened to all of Revelation. I'm like, that is hours and hours and hours of teaching through this book, and I'm just so thankful that it's helpful for lots of people. So I want to continue that today. John has been giving us this vision of a new Jerusalem, a new city. I want to remind you, and we'll talk more about this next week, but when John talks about a new Jerusalem, this is pivotal because the Jerusalem that he knows 25 years prior to this writing has been leveled. I want to remind you of that. Historically, in 70 AD, it wasn't just the temple that was leveled. The city of Jerusalem itself had been ransacked by the Romans. So when John, writing in the late first century, is writing about a vision where he sees a new Jerusalem, this is deeply personal for him. What he's saying is, I am imagining a Jerusalem, a city that has been demolished and leveled by the empire. I am watching it before my eyes be restored. And that is the vision. So futurists will read this and they'll see the New Jerusalem as a picture of heaven. And that's fine. If that brings you some hope, I think that's great. My only hesitation is this. I don't think we have to wait till we die to experience heaven, okay? I think the point that John is getting at is that actually heaven and earth come together in this moment. So what we've been doing is reading a little bit of this vision at the end of the book of Revelation. And I want to get into just two little parts that John gives us today, and I think they're profound for where we are, even in the world in front of the text, our country, 2025, Atlanta, Georgia. So let's read just a couple verses here. This is Revelation 21. We'll pick up in verse 22. I saw, remember, he's speaking about the vision of the new city. I saw no temple in the city, for its temple is the Lord God, the Almighty, and the Lamb. And the city has no need of sun or moon to shine on it, for the glory of God is its light, and its lamp is the Lamb. The nations will walk by its light, and the kings of the earth will bring their glory into it. Its gates will never be shut by day, and there will be no night there. People will bring into it the glory and the honor of the nations, but nothing unclean will enter it, nor anyone who practices abomination or falsehood, but only those who are written in the Lamb's book of life. If you're evangelical, that last line, that makes you smile, all right? Now, all that said, let's get into these two phrases for a minute, because I think it's pivotal when you look at this vision that John gives. He's not just creating filler here to write a book, all right? John is trying to bring some encouragement to these late first century Jesus followers who are being oppressed by Domitian, who is the ruling emperor at the time. And John has done, a masterful job with apocalyptic literature here, okay? Scholarship really comes down on this John because they say his Greek is really bad. They say he's not a very good writer. I would push back against scholarship and say it doesn't matter how good you write when you can paint a picture as beautiful as John has painted this picture with apocalyptic literature, all right? And what John is doing is in the midst of the city that's ruined, he's trying to breathe some life into these first century Jesus followers. And there are 7 churches that he's writing to, or 7 spiritual collectives, and they're all over the place. Some of them have literally, according to John, lost their life because they're resisting empire. Then you have others who are in the middle, and they don't really think it's a big deal. They're like those that sit in the middle and they both sides everything. You know what I'm talking about? Well, this side says this, but this says, but there's truth on both sides, right? Like there's good people on both sides, right? And then you have some in those 7 churches who are just like, no, we've straight up gotten in bed with empire, and we don't think there's anything wrong with it. And if you're new to the teaching here, you need to know emperor worship was a big thing in the late 1st century. And what John is doing is he's just addressing it. And what you have are a group of people. Some of them are just like, there's not a problem here. Just like give a salute, light a little incense, swing by Domitian's temple, do what you got to do to keep your family alive and food on the table. Just bend the knee a little bit. It's not a big deal. And John is just coming down on all those groups of people. And he says to the people that are resisting, as you resist, don't forget, you have lost your first love. Resist, but stay grounded in love. And then he looks at the people in the middle and he compares them to Laodicea. In Laodicea, they had a water problem. And by the time the water got through the aqueducts to the city, it was lukewarm. And he's just like, you people that are in the middle, you think you're so clever. You think you're so wise, but I want you to know that lukewarm water makes God sick, right? And then you got those who have gotten in bed with empire, and he essentially just looks at them and says, come out from among her. Like, get out of her. You have, like, actually committed idolatry, right? And now as he's getting towards the end of his letter, he says something so profound. Because remember, he's writing to these 7 churches, all of which have these memories of this sacred temple. And what John says is, the city, the New Jerusalem, the restored state, there'll be no temple there. Now you need to understand, in the late 1st century, that would have been perhaps almost a heretical statement. What do you mean, no temple in this restored city? Well, first of all, John's writing at a time where the temple isn't anyways. It's been leveled. It's been destroyed. There's like a western wall still standing. And what people had hoped is that a new temple would eventually be built. And there's even futurists that read the book of Revelation, and they actually read it as a new temple being built. They are waiting on it. They see it as like a prophetic moment in the next stage of prophecy. And these individuals are not only believe that a new temple is being built, but they're like actually creating laws, and they are working diligently for a new temple to be built. But the irony is, if they just kept reading the Bible, and this is the problem with politicians who use the Bible, is they don't know the Bible. And so what happens is they stand on it, claim it, because you all know this, they're using it as an authority because they know it matters to a lot of people in America. And so what they'll do is they'll just take a text, and we call that a proof text, right? And I know that y'all know this, but you can make the Bible say whatever it is you want it to say. Honestly, if you're in here and you're like, I have a thing, and just hang with me, all right? This is a little gruesome, but if you're like, I believe in sacrificing kids, great news. There are Bible verses that can be backed up by that. In your Bible, you could stand with authority on the Bible going, the Bible says we can sacrifice kids. It's in the Bible, all right? Anything you want, just about, you can back it up with some Bible verse. And this is what's happening even in our own moment, right? And it's interesting because if we just knew a little bit of context, if we just read a little further in the text, you would see. First of all, when John talks about a temple in Revelation chapter 11, he's not referencing an actual structure in a building. We talked about this. John is referencing people. He's saying, you are the temple, all right? And when he gets to chapter 21, at this point, he gives us this profound vision of a restored city. And in the restored city, the very thing that these late 1st century Jewish Jesus followers were probably looking for is, if you're going to restore a city, that means bringing back a temple that's been demolished by the empire. And they're waiting and hoping for a space like this. And John says, no, not in the restored city. There will be no temple. Now, the question is why? And here's how we got to get to that question. Well, what was the point of a temple? Well, it was a way for God's presence to be with God's people and for people to approach God. Think about how the temple, the structure was laid out. You had these different layers, and you would move in, and the closer you moved into the center, which was called the Holy of Holies, is where you would encounter the divine. So if you wanted to meet God, you go to the temple. And depending on who you were allowed in certain sections of that temple. And the closer you got to the center, which was a perfect square, was the closer you got to the presence of God. But what John is saying is, there's no need for that anymore. Because people now in this new city can approach God directly right where they are. Now pause, imagine that for a moment. Now for some of you are like, duh, all right? But you have to understand, late first century, this is a evolutionary, profound idea that you now can approach the divine at brunch over a mimosa. Do you understand that? Like you can actually do that. You don't actually have to come to a temple to meet the divine. Because here's the thing. John is trying to help us see, and this has been an evolutionary idea all the way through the biblical narrative, but John is trying to help us see the divine has never actually been boxed into a square called a temple. Now, it's a beautiful idea, and it's helped move consciousness forward. But we're now at a place in the late first century where you have these bizarre ideas that maybe God is outside the temple. And this was critical, and I'll tell you why. Because if God can only be found in the temple, when the temple went down, now you have a problem. What do you do? Because what that means is the God of the Romans has defeated Yahweh. And if God is only found in the center of the temple and the temple goes down, then you have a problem because you cannot encounter God anymore. But all of it has been used and led for this profound idea that there is no need for a temple in this new city. There is no need for sacrifices anymore. There are no need for priests. There's no need to help try to connect people with the divine because, and here's the beauty of it, in the new city that John explains, there is no need for these things because there is no disconnection between God and the people. Everyone in the New Jerusalem is awake to their inherent union with the divine. The lie of separation has been exposed. And this is a part of what we're trying to do at Vinings Lake, is I want to expose so much of what we were handed and how much of it was a lie. I don't know how to tell you this, but many of us grew up evangelical, and growing up evangelical, one of the earliest things they teach you is that you have sinned and been separated from God. And they'll even use language like, God can't look upon sin, therefore God doesn't look upon you. As if there's like this gap. And you know this because we've talked about this before, but literally they used to teach this, that the cross was like a bridge between you and God, so that finally you can have an upstanding relationship with God again. And here's what I want to tell you. I actually don't think you have ever been separated from the divine. And if salvation, if we want to use that word, is anything, it may very well be simply all of us waking up to the truth that has always been. That you and I have always been one with the divine. If Jesus is showing us anything, he is showing us this truth, that the Father and him have always been one, just as you and him are one, just as we are all one, just as us and the divine are one, because the lie is the lie that you and I have ever been separated from the divine. The truth is you and I have had inherent union from God since the beginning. Now, we may not always have been aware of it, but it's always been there. I mean, you and I aren't born broken and separated from God. It's actually the opposite. You and I are born whole and made in the image of God. And this is good news, and John begins here. In fact, he goes on in verse 16 to describe the city as having 4 equal sides. He says in verse 16, its length the same as its width. So as he uses this apocalyptic literature to describe the city, he says its length is the same as its width. Its length and width and height are all equal. Now, when you read that, you're like, why is John going into so much detail about this city? Because the first century crowd would have known immediately what he's talking about. This would have brought memories of the inner sanctuary of the Jewish temple. Because in the Holy of Holies, it's described as being a perfect square. And what John does is he says this new city, when it's restored, you'll see it as a perfect square. What is he getting at? He's saying you no longer have to go to a temple and an inner sanctuary because the entire city now is an inner sanctuary and a temple. What he's saying is all of life is sacred. There are no special places and times, but all people are now, quote, priest, unquote. This is where the entire narrative has been heading anyways. You start from the very beginning and you have Leviticus talking in detail about the sacrificial system. But what you'll see is it moves from God being in a tent that can be pulled up and moved around. And then you move it to a tabernacle. And then from the tabernacle, you finally have a location called the temple. What you are seeing is a gradual shift in consciousness. And it's a shift in consciousness to this truth, this reality. And here it is. At the heart of matter, at the heart of every atom in the cosmos, is the eternal presence of the divine. The divine is the source of all things, the energy behind all things, and the light within all things. Friends, I have good news for you. You no longer need a temple in the restored Jerusalem, because here's the truth that you need to know. There is no place where God is not. This is why it always amazes me when I meet people, and growing up in the church, they used to talk about secular and sacred. You've heard that, right? There is no such thing as sacred or as secular. There is no such thing as secular, because by very notion, that would be a claim that God is not somewhere. No, the reason we can say with assurance everything is deeply sacred and spiritual is because there is no place where the divine can't be found. Show me a place and I'll say, look hard enough and you will see the divine present in that moment. Even the writers in Psalm says, when I make my bed in Sheol, the divine is present. Yeah. This is the image that John is giving us. There is a city that he says there'll be no need for your sacrifices, for your priests trying to connect you to God, because in this city, every human being will know who they've always been. The truth of their actual essence, that they have been made in the image of the divine. They will know sacredness and holiness and beauty at their very essence. It will just be true. They'll be awake to it. And that's a game changer. Because if I know you've been made in the image of God, I won't be very quick to harm you. It's keeping this realization that every person we encounter is a sacred being. And then John moves on, and here's where I want to get to, okay? He says in this new city there'll be no temple, but he holds it together with this, and this is why I think it's so profound. He says there'll also be no need of sun or moon to shine on it, for the glory of God is its light, and its lamp is the Lamb, and the nations will walk by its light. Now, I think John is doing two things here. One, I think he's showing this new city being a place that will outshine the grandeur of Rome, right? Remember, Rome was like known as the eternal city, and John is juxtaposing this new city, Jerusalem, against Rome. And what John is trying to get at us is, God, people thought Rome was the most majestic, brightest city ever. And what I want you to know in this new restored Jerusalem, this new city, there'll be no need for sunshine. Now, I don't know about you, but if you read that literally, God, that's kind of a bummer. Because I love sunshine. In fact, the last couple days, I've just been like, God, I need sunshine. I need it, like, as much as possible, right? What John is getting at here is, again, he's using apocalyptic literature, so think metaphorically here. John is saying something really profound. He's saying, in this new city, it will not only outshine everything Rome promised to be, but it will actually deliver. And then I think John is going a little deeper here. I think what he's saying is, when he says there's no need for sun or moon to shine on it, for the glory of God is its light, what he's saying is, and he actually says it when he says her gates will never be shut because there will be no night there. What John is getting at is, I think he's saying there's nowhere in the new city to hide. There will be no more darkness and shadows sitting in the unconscious of the culture. The glory of God will be so present. And if glory of God triggers you, use realm of God, use love of God. Love of God is great, right? Just use love. The love will be so great that no one will be able to hide in the corner of the empire. No one in the new city will be able to sit in like a shadow and twist the truth. No one will be able, there'll be no hiding in the new city. There'll be no place where you can go and get away with your devious, twisted schemes. And I don't know about you, but God, I need that. Carl Jung calls this shadow work. You've probably heard this phrase. You've heard me talk about it. To give you a little definition, our shadow self is anything that we can't see, won't see, afraid to see, and don't want others to see about ourselves. It's the part of us in which our fears, insecurities, greed, terror, and worst suspicions about ourselves reside. Now we'll just pause here. Most of you are like, oh, God, I don't want anyone to know about this. I know. What John is saying is that there'll be no more of that. In this restored city, there'll be no more space for people to hide in the shadows. What you need to know about the shadow self is it's not evil necessarily in itself. It just allows you to do evil without recognizing it as evil. That's what the shadow does. And right now, more than ever, you see this playing out. The image that John gives us, that it will be so bright that there'll be no places to hide in the darkness, is such a revolutionary idea, and it's one that I long for and hope for. And I think it's what John is getting at in this book in general. When he talks about apocalypse, which is an unveiling, this is what John has been getting at the entire text. What he's doing is he's pulling the curtain back. He's showing everyone the truth. He's revealing Jesus, who Jesus is, the path of Jesus, but he's also revealing and exposing the Roman Empire, Domitian, and all the lies that this empire has peddled. And he's trying to show everyone the empire is not what you think it is. It's not who it claims to be. And what's the best way to do that? John's saying it. It'll be exactly where we're heading in the new city. You shine a spotlight on those shadows. The greatest way to expose a shadow is to bring it to its surface. This is why we say around here, do your own inner work. Do your own inner work daily. Get in there. Get in there. And whatever you don't like about yourself that you believe is within you, here's the thing. Bring that thing out to the surface, because when you expose it to the light, that's where the healing is. And this is what I believe John has been doing through the entire book of Revelation. And I believe it's actually what's happening in America right now. I believe what you're seeing is the shadows of our American culture surfacing. And what's happening is it's really hard to see. I don't know about you, but there's a part of me like to say that's not true about our country. I don't want to believe it. I don't want to believe it. God bless America. And how many years have we been doing this? I mean, this is by and large, I believe, why most people want to erase history out of our history books. Now, they'll call it DEI, which I've like diversity, equity, and inclusion. That kind of sounds like the gospel. And I also don't know how to tell people that are against it, my God, you would hate Jesus from Nazareth. I just keep saying, I keep repeating that because I don't know how to tell people this. I almost say it as almost like a warning or almost like a heads up. Like what I want to say to evangelicals and Trump and everybody else, just a heads up, When you die, if you do meet Jesus, I'm just going to tell you right now, he's not American. He doesn't speak English, and he's not Caucasian. And that may actually, it's funny to us, but it may shock some people. Like, whoa, who's this brown-skinned man? And why is he speaking in Aramaic? Yeah. I know. What's happening is it's like, it's so hard to see. So they'll call it DEI, but the truth is they just don't want our kids to know the truth about our history. And all I'm trying to say to you is this: how are we ever going to heal if we don't acknowledge the truth? Richard Rohr said, you can't heal what you don't acknowledge. Our AA brothers and sisters know that all day. The first thing you do in AA is, hey, my name is John, I'm an alcoholic. Well, thank you for telling the truth, John. Join us. America's like, hey, we nailed it. He's like, get out of here, America. No one likes you. No, you didn't. Be truthful. You enslaved some people. Then you forced them over here to do your work. And then you got here and you just killed a whole bunch of people. And then claimed this place as your own like you've been here the whole time. Then, just hang with me, and this is a side of history, all right? Yes, there's beautiful things, we'll get to all that. But then in the process, you decide, well, we've killed everybody now, so we got it. Then you put up walls and say, now nobody else can come in. Now, I mentioned this shadow work and all of this because I think what John is doing is, and that's, he's just saying, don't press it down in the unconscious. Now, I know, hang with me, I realize why we do that as Americans. We push things down, and here's why. Because we're afraid to deal with it. And when you're afraid of something, when you fear it, you just want it out of your sight. So what you do is you push it down in the unconscious. But here's what I need you to understand, and trust me from experience. You may try to push something down in your unconscious, but just because it's out of sight doesn't mean it's out of body. Does that make sense? So you may get it out of your sight, but hear me when I tell you, your body does actually keep the score. There's a truth to the title of that book. Because what will happen is your body will begin to react to all of the stuff you're pushing down to the unconscious. And I know that from experience because I've had major panic attacks in my life. And a part of that is because I had so much stuff coming at me, and I can't deal with it right now. Push. All that down in here. And eventually your body says, you know what? We're filled up here. We've had enough. And it will itself shut down. And perhaps there's some truth about that with our own American culture. That maybe right now the body of America has just had enough. The body has had enough. And in some ways, it almost feels like, and you hear people say, it feels like we're dying. Yes, maybe it's because we are. Maybe we are. And so we're watching this, and right now things are just surfacing, and we're like, I can't look. And I want to give grace to this. If you're in this space, especially for those of you that have got most of your life been oppressed at some level or abused, it might be the proper time for you to close your eyes for your own self-care. Yes. But there are some of us in here, especially those of us that are sitting at good intersections, social intersections. like actual privileged social intersections. It's important for us to see this for what it is. Because it is apocalyptic. It is an exposing. And we need to see it so we can begin the process of healing. And so when John says there'll be no need for sun, he's saying no more of the shadows sitting in the corner. Like this thing, it's lit up. You know what the scripture says over and again? You're children of light. The image that I love about this is I see it almost like a flashlight. And a part of our task as like Jesus people is like if you see it like a corner room that doesn't have a lot of light on it, you go, what's over there? This is, by the way, all we've been doing in this series. And what many of you do all week long in American culture. You're down in the unconscious of the American culture and you're going, what's this? And then some of you, I'm so proud of you, because you turn the flashlight and you're like, oh, and then you're like, everyone needs to see that, so you post about it. You know what I'm talking about? You know what I'm talking about? You're like, well, look what's sitting over here in the corner of America in Alabama. Well, the world needs it, because here's why. Not because you're like, I need more clicks. God, stop. You know what we all know, that the way that you get rid of a shadow is to expose it to the light. And so all we're doing, in many ways, is we're just turning the lights on right now. So the message for John is you don't have to wait. Like the new city is here. So just keep flipping the lights on. Like all of it. Flip all the lights on. I want us all to walk into the belly of the beast of America and be like, turn that light on, that light on, that light on, that light on, that light on. Oh, the White House, we need some light up in there. Turn it on, turn it on, turn it on, turn it on. Flip all the switches on. Let everybody see what's been there the entire time. But we've just been pressing it down. Now, all that said, I'd like to flip a switch this morning. And here's one. This week, I don't know what day it was. The President of the United States of America posted an AI-generated photo of himself as the Pope. I brought it with me. He not only posted this is painful to say, the White House of the United States of America posted this image. The White House of the United States of America. This, by the way, is the President of the United States of America. I just want to be clear. Now, I want to say two things. One, I was very reluctant to share this. The same reason that, other than last night, this is the first image I've ever shared of this man. I don't like reposting his post. I don't like giving him any attention. I've been very clear about this. Part of the reason is because I believe he created the image to get this reaction. This man is not an idiot on some levels. But he creates things like this, in my opinion, because he's starving for more attention. Now, he posted this, and the White House posted this, and Lindsey Graham made a statement, and then J.D. Vance made a statement. Oh, it's all in good fun. It's a joke. Now, a couple things that I want to say, and this is the reason why I'm showing this. First of all, the Pope just died in the wake of the loss of, by and large, one of the greatest popes of our lifetime. This man creates an image and he posts it as a joke. In my opinion, I not only think it's just in, quote, have you heard, bad taste, unquote. I think it's incredibly, incredibly an affront and disrespect to the Catholic Church. Not only that, but there are people, actual human beings, grieving the loss of a man they deeply loved, who, by the way, was the complete antithesis to this man. Didn't have anything to his name, didn't care about his money, no bank accounts, none of that stuff. Truly lived as St. Francis lived. And in the wake of people mourning, to which he went to the funeral, he decides, oh, this would be a great idea. Right now would be a good time for an artificial intelligent photo to be posted. Perhaps one of the reasons is because he did go to the funeral. And what happens when you are an emotionally immature child, as our president is, you get upset because there's a dead man in a casket that's getting more attention than you are. We've already gone. We're not coming. We've already gone. Kevin's still out waiting for the train. I'm like, it flew by 10 minutes ago. Come on, train, get there. I'm like, dude, we're way down here. And I bring this to your attention because when I first saw it, there were two impulses. One, I'm just not surprised. I'm just not surprised. I mean, this is what immature people do. Yes, and everyone, even MAGA crowd, are like, yeah, he's not the most mature person. Like, yeah, this is what when you put a child in the White House, don't expect them to act anything other than a child. Okay. Second impulse. First impulse, not surprised. Second impulse, I don't know if he meant this, but my God, it's a profound image. I mean, I sat with it going, oh, what? I'm not in his body, but I wouldn't think he saw this. But I sat there and I cannot stop staring at it going, God, it's one of the most profound images of our lifetime. Second to it would be the moment he held up a Bible in front of a church for a photo op. Both these images sit side by side. And I can't help but stare at it because there's so many layers to what I'm seeing right now. And I'll just give you just one layer here. This image that we've been given of Trump in a Pope outfit is apocalyptic in the deepest sense of the word. He is portraying himself as a religious authority because he is. This image of Trump in a Pope outfit reveals what John has been saying in Revelation the entire time. It is an unveiling, it is a shining, it is a cutting on the light switch. It is this is who is actually been leading the entire time. It reveals how greed, corruption, immorality, violence, lies, war, injustice, revenge, envy, narcissism, abuse, and oppression can be. And this is how it can be digested, accepted, championed, and encouraged when it is disguised as a religious authority. It has the appearance of being Christian, but is actually anti-Christ. And what this image is showing us is the truth about who this man is and who our empire actually is. It is believe it or not, I know it's AI, but it's the unfiltered truth about this system we're in. And what I want to say is that he wasn't speaking any lies in his mind. He, in fact, without being the Pope, is the religious authority in America. Now, he might have a better shot of being the president of the Southern Baptist Convention than being the Pope. But either way, he knows the truth that he has religion in his pocket. And what I want to say to every single MAGA, quote, Jesus follower, unquote, which is an oxymoron, what I want to say to you is you are being played. Okay? You are being played to further the imperial agenda. And when I look at that image, I cannot help but to repeat a truth that I have been repeating this entire series. It is the ultimate deception to have that which is Antichrist hide itself inside a religion with the name of Christ. Friends, you justify wars and you cleanse injustice and you sanctify your violence and atrocity and nefarious acts really easy because you help the people digest it easier when you coat it in a sugar coating called religion. No Antichrist has ever showed up on the scene wearing anything but a Pope outfit. Rest assured, no Antichrist has popped up on the scene going, check out my devil costume. No. No. Now, if you're here going, whoa, you're calling Trump the Antichrist? You need to go back to part 5 or 6 or 7 or 8, and you'll know. No, I don't believe the Antichrist is some individual coming. No. But I do believe John in the epistles talk about Antichrist plural, which means there are always individuals, institutions, and forces that oppose the way of Jesus. And this is how it works. And just 2 weeks ago, in light of this photo, an archbishop compared Donald Trump to Emperor Constantine. Now, if you were here, I gave a whole lecture and teaching on Emperor Constantine. So what they thought was a compliment was, again, a way of exposing. And by the way, you go 1 or 2 layers in and you can see how that works, right? Everybody's applauding, going, he is like Emperor Constantine. He's brought the religion back to the forefront, anti-Christian bias. And all I want to say to you is this, just to be clear, Constantine was a ruthless political leader. He had his son killed, and he executed his wife in boiling water. And on top of all of that, he put the logo of Jesus Christ on the front of their military shields because they were quite literally going out conquering the world in the name of Jesus. So when a crowd stands and going, he's like Emperor Constantine, I'm looking going, you all know that's not a compliment. This archbishop went on to say, not only is Trump like Constantine, but he, quote, embodies the values of our Christian faith and love for the gospel, unquote. And what I want to say to you is, the empire couldn't care less about Christianity. And this is historical. Again and again since Constantine, the empire has been using religion to further its own power. And I speak, and hear me, I grew up evangelical, so I hope you hear this. I realize what I'm saying can, your head nodding to the choir. I understand all that. But I also want you to know my heart behind this, which is I just want to cut the lights on. Because it breaks my heart to see people like my own mom and dad who sees no wrong in anything this administration is doing. And all I want to do is just flip the light switch going, whoa, do you see this? Because in many ways, I'm just portraying the heart that they portrayed to me years ago. They were so concerned about me going down the wrong path. And this is why they're like, don't watch those movies. They're rated R. And stay away from Tupac and Notorious Big. That will lead you astray, that devil music. I remember when Bone Thugs and Harmony released their album. And I got it, and on the back, they wrote everything backwards, and I had to put it in the mirror to read it. And my parents found that. They were like, "It's of Satan." And I'm literally like, wake up, it's the first of the month. Welcome to my comedy show. I know you all your parents are like, God, I could see you as a kid right now. Well, they warned me. They were so fearful that I might slide down or backslide or slide down the slippers or whatever. Like, they were just so fearful. And a part of what's happened now is the roles have reversed, and I'm like, God. And I think what might be the most heart-crushing is that many of us know this, but they used to always say, I just want you following Jesus. I need to be clear, Mom, Dad, anyone who's watching, that's what I'm doing. I'm doing what you taught me to do. I think what's happening now is not that you're concerned I'm not following Jesus. I think what's happening in this moment is you're starting to realize you have detoured from following Jesus yourself. And what's happening is there's an exposing, and the exposing of the evangelical world is one that I give a lot of grace for. It's hard to see, just like right now some things are hard to see. And what's hard to see right now is that maybe, when you told your kids, keep Jesus in the center, what you really meant was keep the Republican Party in the center. And somehow you blended Jesus and Republican parties and your values and the way you see the world and the way your worldview is, that they are one in the same. And these two have blended together. And the reason I know that's true is because they're separating now. And you're no longer saying, Cody, stay faithful to the path. Keep Jesus in the center. No. Now you're no longer upset that I'm following Jesus. You're upset because I didn't vote like you did. You're upset because I don't see the world like you see it. You're upset because I don't support a man who is the antithesis to everything the gospel teaches me to be. And that tells me you've shown your cards. It was never about Jesus for you, perhaps. Perhaps it was always about the way you see the world. And maybe the unveiling is this. Maybe it's that actually what was your God was not Jesus from Nazareth. What was your God was your own opinions and your own worldviews and your own way of doing life. Because now when you're straying, well, let's talk about what am I straying from? Because it's not Jesus. What I'm straying from is the way you see the world. Drinks, anybody? How about this? We'll close here because it's 12:15. I've been trying to cut it to Tim's thing, but let's do this. That image, I think President Zelensky over in the Ukraine, I think he said it best. One of the most monumental quotes of all time that people just skipped over. And I know there's nuance to the word and the way they use it in the Ukraine, but it doesn't matter. That's actually the beauty of it to me, is that the word they use in Ukraine, the way it translates in America, and the way he said it in front of all the cameras in that meeting when he was getting absolutely just trashed by our government, which was full. Here's a man coming from war, defending his country, and he sits down, and our team has the audacity to be like, have you said thank you? And by the way, and I know we're riffing now. Welcome to Vinings Lake, all right? And by the way, I know there's some things, I say things all the time that I regret, and then I go home, and I want to tell you my prayer always when I go home is, God, if I said something that was forgive the language here, but like in the flesh or something that was like please burn it up so no one remembers it. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like I pray that often because I didn't mean it. It just kind of came out. But here's the thing that I want you to know. Zelensky, he's coming from war. He's sitting in this office, and they're like, "Are you thankful?" I was dead the other day when the Chinese leadership sent a note back to Trump and said, "We have given you X, Y, and Z, and you haven't said thank you yet." Dead. All right, dead. All right. But Zelensky was just in the hot seat. I mean, in the hot seat, and they're going at it, and Vance is having at it, and it was so interesting because as they're going at it, one of the reporters, you probably remember this epic scene. One of the reporters says, "Why aren't you wearing a suit?" You remember this? Because that's the fundamental importance of someone who's in the middle of a war and their families losing their lives. And that, by the way, if there is an image of America, it is that. I don't understand. Why don't you wear a suit, right? Well, Zelensky says this. God, it's the greatest line of all time. He said, very seriously, because this is his word for suit in the Ukraine. He looked out in front of the cameras and everyone. He said, and I'm going to do it in his accent, not to mock him, just because it sounds good. He says, "I will wear costume after the war." I will wear costume after the war. I was with Katie watching. I was like, "Oh, can you say mic drop? I will wear costume after the." My God, Zelensky. All right. By the way, all of this happening, it's kind of amazing to be alive right now. I mean, what a time. What a time in the history of histories that we all, for whatever reason, designed and we're here. And then they put us all in Mableton. And then years ago, someone's like, we should have this pastor named Cody and they should start a church. And then we would be talking about this moment. It's profound. All right. I'm going to read this paragraph to you in closing. And this is like our benediction. All right. This is, by the way, from Richard Rohr. You all know him. The only man I've yet to interview, and I was so close to interviewing him, and then he got cancer and got sick. He's doing much better now, but he wrote this book. I have sat down, my claim to fame. I had bourbon with Richard Rohr in California, Laguna Beach one time, overlooking the ocean. Oh my God, people. One of the greatest moments of my entire life. It's like Rohr wedding. I'm just kidding. Okay. Please, God, burn it up. They don't mean it. All right, Rohr wrote this. Listen to this. He said, "We need to stop being surprised or shocked by reality and recognize that evil flourishes best when it is denied. Evil relies on being considered rational, necessary, and expedient by otherwise good people. Witness the ravages of communism or even Nazism when everyday people could not see how their shadow side, in completely different ways, was causing them to demonize and kill millions of their fellow humans. You can't see what your group can't see." I want to repeat that. This is true for all of us on wherever you land. You can't see what your group can't see. But once you, quote, out the demon, unquote, the real hidden problem, in any group or on any issue, it loses much of its potency. Thus, it should not surprise when we identify evil with darkness, a state in which we cannot see, the goodness as a form of light, in which even our own darkness is eliminated. I just want to remind you all, evil relies on being considered rational, necessary, and expedient by otherwise good people. Vinings Lake, as you go into your week. May this week you find the courage, the energy, and the inspiration to cut on every light in America. May you flip the switch on the deepest shadows that are sitting in the unconscious of our country. And may you continue to pull back the veil so that we might actually begin a process of healing. Peace be with you. See you next Sunday.